Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Today, I want to have a conversation around the third topic that is related to accountability for us here at Fit to Profit. I'm excited to talk about this topic as it's one of the things that I actually resisted for a long time. So, thank you so much for those of you who have tuned in for the last couple of weeks. I know last week we talked about how to really hold yourself. Well, the first week we talked about how to really hold yourself accountable, and last week was more about how to really follow through and such. And this week I want to talk about commitment. I really feel like part of having the right accountability system for yourself, you have to understand what commitment really means for you. And I say that because at the beginning of my time with self development and really taking responsibility for myself, which is what we talked in depth about last week, is that I really thought that commitment is something that is going to happen, like when I am passionate about something, and or it's something that is going to come automatic if I decide to embark on a journey or a project or a task. And what I learned throughout my years and up until this point of my life too, is still a practice, is that commitment is less of a feeling, which I have thought the whole time was I have to feel motivated, I have to feel committed, I have to feel passionate and whatever the X, Y, and Z feeling, so I can do what I need to do to stay committed. And what I realized after, learning more about commitment being more of just an action versus a feeling. And it's definitely more true right now in my life because, of course, you already know that I have a 4.5-year old, and then also I have 9-month old. I'm writing a book, I have a partnership that I'm also managing, and then I'm also running my Fit to Profit business. So all of that to say that, do I really want to get up in the middle of the night to really put my son back to sleep at 2 a.m. when he's waking up? And or sometimes he gets up and he would cry himself to throw up and all of that. Not really. But I have committed to be a mom. I have committed to be his mama. So it's like you just follow through with it, especially when you like it the least. I'm saying that we talked about this before too, of on days where you don't feel like showing up, on days where you don't feel 100% yourself and whatever it may be. It's important to really understand that commitment is more of an action, and as long you don't have to love it, and that there's resistance, and there's also so many feelings that come with having to follow through with the process to stay committed, that just know that you don't have to love it to do it. And that's one of the things that really helps me the most recently, is that when I feel resistant or when I am about to do something, I really realize that I really don't have to like the task to get it done. And more importantly, it's just I'm just following through with my commitment. I'm keeping my word to what I say I would do, and that I'm just going to follow through. And that is more of an action piece. So that was a really big aha moment for me to realize that I was waiting for commitment to be more of a feeling. I don't know if you guys relate to this, but please comment. Let me know. But I really thought for the longest time that commitment is more of a feeling. So I have to feel motivated. I have to feel a certain way to do what I need to do, but it's not. It's really an action. And especially when things are hard. So, really, my purpose to share my podcast with you today is just to give you 3 tips to really focus on so that way you can stay committed, and stay committed so that way you can follow through, so that way you can achieve the results that you want to achieve. And you probably have heard of this concept before. I've talked about this being like the leading reason why you do what you do, and it's going to keep you motivated, it's going to keep you tapped into what it is important to you. And you have heard me many times, is that the first thing that is going to help you stay committed is to get really clear on what you're committing yourself to and why. I know we talked about responsibility last week, and responsibility can get really gray when it comes to doing a task out obligation, or doing something just to be nice, right? Or committing yourself to doing something just so that you get approval. I want to really raise the question being is that when you are deciding to commit to something, why are you doing it? Right? Is this project going to get you closer to your goal? Is this project going to get you closer to your ultimate lifetime vision of what it's going to look like when you're successful? I say that because honestly, all through until when I was really aware and conscious that I was people pleasing, I was doing things for external validation, I was doing things just to be liked, I was overcommitted. I don't know if you can relate. So, really check in with yourself when you're about to commit to something. Why are you doing it? And ultimately, if you're one of those people like me, for the longest time I am a people pleaser, recovered people pleaser. So give yourself a pause, give yourself a moment when you are asked to do something, rather than saying yes right away, because that's my natural instinct too, is that to pause and say, let me think about it. I don't know right now at the moment, but I'll get back with you tomorrow, in the next 24 hours, whenever the timeline is. But really get committed to deciding what to commit to, because oftentimes if we are too fast to make a decision to say yes all of the things, I can tell you you're going to end up being overcommitted, and you're going to end up being more resentful towards the person or whatever the task is going to be. So get really clear on your why you want to commit yourself to something, and really be honest with yourself in that process. That's the first thing. And then the second thing that I really want to share on commitment here is, it's really easy to say, yes, I'm committed to X, Y, and Z, but oftentimes you're not really following through because there's no actual plan. And perhaps this is another way for you to really pause and say yes or no to the commitment. If you take this step, it's almost like reverse engineering, I would say, before you say yes to a commitment, is to really think about how long does it really take, kind of like hypothetically plan out to see how long is it going to take you to do the prep work, how long is it going to take you to execute it, and are you going to need help or additional manpower, whatever resources that you are going to need to fulfill that commitment. Chances are, if you take on that process, going to be planning that out, actually it helps you to really decide, oh wait, no, I really don't have time for this task, or really I don't have time to volunteer to that particular event and such. So if you really take this planning piece to heart, you can really use it as a tool to really manage to see if you are overcommitting. And usually this step is going to help you pause to think if you really care about what it is that you're trying to commit yourself to. And also be really compassionate with yourself with the planning process too, because sometimes through the different seasons of your life, you are going to want to prioritize certain things. So make sure that your whatever you're planning to do is in line with your goals during that season of your life. But the planning part is actual step where you it's super beneficial for you to decide if you really want to commit to something or not. And honestly, last but not least, I know, contrary to the popular belief you probably have heard before of, oh, execute your to-do list by, doing the hardest thing first. I can tell you, when your commitment is being tested, when your commitment is being tested, you're going to be resistant. You're not going to want to do anything. Not to mention, you're going to do the hardest thing on your list. Actually, it's the opposite. So I would actually invite you to do the easiest thing on your list that is related to that commitment. Because here's the thing, what I've learned from one of my coaches, that money loves speed. And guess what? Progress loves momentum. Momentum. Here's what I mean by that. If you look at a to-do list, or you look at your commitment and you're going to say that I'm going to do the hardest thing on the list, chances are tell you 9 out of 10, you're not going to do it. But if you start with the easiest task on your list, that is going to get you moving to the next task. to the next task, to the next task, and eventually get you you're flexing the muscles in the meantime, right? You're doing the next step and you're creating that momentum. Remember, progress loves momentum. So when you have that momentum, executing the hardest thing on your list eventually is not going to be that hard because you have already sped up that momentum. So same thing, I've used this analogy before too, or this example before, where for example, if working out in the morning is not your thing, what if you went to bed with your workout clothes on? And what if you have your shoes, right, like by your bed or right there next to your door? So it's already, remember, like that easiest step is already done. So then you can take the next step. So same idea here is that if you do the easiest things on your list, it's going to create that momentum that you need to keep moving forward. Okay. And again, I can tell you that commitment, just like anything, it's a practice. It's a practice. And it's a practice of, I talked about this on one of my previous podcasts. And rather than going for consistency, I would say focus on commitment rather than consistency, because commitment is going to get you back into the game more from an internal standpoint, where you're more focused on to why you do what you do and why does it really matter to you, and staying committed and offer yourself the opportunity to recommit every time you fall off the bandwagon. But commitment is really key to accountability, because if you're following through with what you're saying that you would follow through with, that is going to ultimately get you the results. And staying committed is super important. That is going to bring you the success that you need. So that's what I want to drop in this week to talk about, is part of being really accountable to yourself and really coming up with the right system for you, which we'll talk about next week, is setting up the right accountability system for you, is to be really committed, to really be aware of how you feel about commitment and what is your relationship with commitment. Because I tell you, for the longest time, I have commitment issues, right? And guess what? Most of us do. Most of us do. I say that because everything is happening really fast in our lives right now. All the technology and everything is very fast paced. We are in the fast and instant gratification type of era right now. So there's no such thing as commitment. It's very short term, it's very short lived. So I would invite you to really consider, how are you looking at commitment? How are you really committing yourself to whatever it is that you do this week, and really gauge to see where you can take it to the next level. But like I shared with you, the 3 tips already, really get connected to your why you're committing to something, actually have a plan to follow through with your commitment. And then last but not least, once you have a plan, really execute it from the easiest steps moving forward to the hardest steps. So that's what I have for you. And speaking of which, I'm really excited to share that I'll be embarking on my second part of leadership training, speaking about commitment. I'm actually going to be in front of, it's a virtual training rather than in person. I usually do in person, but this year, because of COVID, everything is virtual. I'm actually going to be in training for the next, it's 14-hour day. I haven't done the math yet, but 14-hour days for the next 4 days. So speaking about commitment, you just have to go through it, right? It's going through it. It's taking action one step at a time, and really gauge to see where you're really taking action, or when are you really waiting to feel motivated or committed to do something. That's my lesson for you this week. Really tap into yourself. Know when you're really treating commitment as a feeling or an action. Know that it's an action. It's not a feeling. More for you about how to set up your accountability system next week. I'll be back with you soon. Thank you very much for tuning in.